Emma worked at a small busy café in the middle of the city. Every day she wore the same black apron, tied neatly around her waist. Her hair was always pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her shoes were old from walking back and forth between tables all day. She was always polite, always on time, and always quiet. People saw her, but they didn't really see her. She would smile gently and ask, "What can I get for you today?" Some people didn't even look up from their phones. Others spoke quickly as if she wasn't really there. "One black coffee? That's it," or "Can you make that to go?" And just like that, she'd walk away, scribbling their orders on her notepad, heading to the counter to place them. No one asked for her name. No one noticed the way her eyes watched the world around her like she was holding a secret. Emma didn't mind, at least not on the outside. She had learned long ago how to blend in. She worked fast and quietly, always making sure everything was in place. Water filled, sugar pots full, tables wiped clean. If a child dropped their cookie, she'd bring them another one with a warm smile. If someone spilled their drink, she'd rush over with a napkin before anyone called her. She was the kind of person who helped without being asked, but still nobody really noticed her. The cafe was always full of noise, cups clinking, the coffee machine hissing, soft music playing, and endless conversations. People talked about their work, their weekend plans, their favorite movies, but no one ever talked to Emma for more than a few seconds. She was like background music, always there but never the center of attention. Sometimes she would watch the customers and wonder about their lives. The man with the suit who always ordered double espresso, the girl with headphones who came every Tuesday and read poetry, the couple that always argued in whispers. Emma noticed everything. She saw people in a way that they didn't see her. There were moments, quiet moments, when she'd pause for a second behind the counter and stare at the old piano in the corner of the cafe. It was dusty, unused, and probably out of tune. Most people didn't even know it worked. Some thought it was just a decoration, but Emma knew different. Her eyes would rest on the piano for a few seconds before she went back to work. No one noticed that either. To the world, Emma was just the waitress. No one knew her story. No one knew about the girl who used to play music in front of crowds, or the dreams she left behind when life got hard. No one asked why she sometimes looked tired, or why her hands had small calluses that didn't come from carrying plates. No one saw the spark she kept hidden deep inside. But even if people didn't see her, Emma saw herself. She knew who she was. She remembered the girl who used to play the piano late at night, pouring her heart into every note. She remembered the feeling of the keys beneath her fingers like they were a part of her. That part of her wasn't gone, just sleeping. Still, day after day she worked. She listened. She smiled. She carried plates and wiped tables. She stayed invisible, blending into the background. But even shadows have stories. And Emma's story was just waiting for the right moment to come alive again. No one expected it. Not the manager, not the customers, not the staff. To them, Emma was just a quiet girl who served their drinks and disappeared into the kitchen. But life has a funny way of surprising people, especially when they stop paying attention. And soon, they were going to find out just how wrong they were about the girl they ignored. Because the girl in the background had something to say, not with words, but with music. And once she played, no one would ever forget her again. Emma's life was not always like this. People thought she was just an ordinary waitress who knew nothing except taking orders. But deep inside her was a past that no one around her imagined. Before the cafe job, before the small apartment she lived in now, Emma used to be someone else. She used to be someone special. She used to be a girl who held a big dream in her hands like a fragile glass star. Emma grew up in a very small house with music everywhere. Her mother loved quiet classical songs, the kind that make your heart feel full without even knowing why. Her father used to collect old records, mostly jazz. Every night their house would be filled with soft piano tunes. The music felt alive. It felt like magic, and Emma was always the child sitting closest to the speakers, listening deeply, breathing every note like it was fresh air. When she was 5 years old, her parents bought her a tiny toy piano. It wasn't a real one, it was just plastic, but Emma didn't care. She touched those little keys like they were real treasure, and somehow, without any teacher, she created melodies that even adults stopped to listen to. It was like she was born for music. Something inside her connected with the piano in a natural way, like her soul already knew how to play. At age 10, she got her first real piano. It belonged to an old neighbor who was moving to another city and couldn't take it with her. She gifted the piano to Emma after hearing her play the toy one. "This piano deserves real hands," she said. Emma never forgot those words. The piano was big, a little cracked and old, but to Emma it was the most beautiful thing in the world. She would sit with it for hours and hours, sometimes forgetting meals, forgetting homework, forgetting everything except her music. By the time Emma turned 16, she was performing at small school events, then bigger competitions. She won nearly every competition she entered. People whispered her name like a promise. Emma has a future. Music teachers recommended her to famous academies. She was called a prodigy. Her parents were so proud. Everyone believed she would travel the world one day, playing in big halls with people applauding her name. At 19, a dream opportunity arrived. She got selected for a prestigious music academy in another city. It was like a door to a new world had opened. She packed her bags, hugged her parents goodbye, and moved away, believing her future was finally beginning. She started training under professional musicians, learning new techniques, practicing for hours every single day. Every week she improved more. Every month she felt herself growing stronger, more confident. Her teachers said she could become a world-class pianist. Emma believed them, but life is strange. Sometimes right when you think everything is finally going right, something unexpected happens and knocks you down. One night she got a phone call from home that changed everything. Her father was in the hospital. A sudden accident. The news hit her like a storm. She rushed back home, canceled her classes, her performances, everything. Her father survived, but the accident left him unable to work. Her mother had to take care of him. Her younger siblings needed help. Money became tight. Bills started piling up. And then came the most painful decision Emma ever made. She had to leave the academy and return home permanently. She tried to continue practicing piano, but time disappeared. She took small jobs. She took care of her family. She covered bills. She stopped performing. She stopped playing in front of any audience. Slowly, her music became a silent part of her, like a book that no one opens anymore. Her hands became busier with chores than with keys. Her dream, which once felt so close, now felt like a story from another lifetime. And then, eventually, she ended up working at the café. At first, she thought it would only be temporary, just for a little while. But days became months. Months became years, and the people around her never saw the girl she used to be. They never heard her story. They never heard her music. Sometimes, while wiping tables or carrying plates, she would remember the academy stage, the spotlight, the applause. She would remember the applause like a warm wave. She would remember how she once believed she was born for something bigger. There were nights she cried quietly in her small room, not because she was weak, but because she remembered who she once was, and who she had to become for her family. Life forced her to sacrifice parts of herself, and she did it quietly, without complaining, without anyone thanking her. But one thing never died. Her connection to the piano. That same burning spark inside her chest, the one she had since she was a child, but it was still there, sleeping, waiting, like a candle that has not burned out, only hidden from wind. Emma's past was not dead. It was only silent. And soon, very soon, the world would hear it again. The café had something most people ignored: a piano. It sat in the corner of the room, covered in dust, quiet and forgotten. It was old, with faded keys and a few scratches along the side. Some people thought it was just for decoration. Others joked that it probably didn't even work anymore. No one ever touched it. No one cared, except Emma. Every day, while serving coffee or wiping tables, her eyes would wander toward that piano. She never stared for long, just a glance, like looking at an old friend from far away. It was the same kind of piano she used to play as a child. Not perfect, not shiny, but full of soul. She wondered if it still worked, if it still had a voice. Emma never told anyone at the café about her past. No one asked. They just knew her as the quiet girl who always came on time, always did her job, and always said thank you with a soft smile. But inside her, music was still alive, like a song stuck in her chest that no one could hear. One evening, the café was about to close. Most of the customers had left. The lights were softer, the noise had faded, and the street outside was calm. Emma was cleaning the last table when her eyes landed on the piano again. The urge inside her was stronger than usual. Something in her heart whispered, Just touch it once. She looked around. The manager was in the back counting money. The barista had her headphones in. No one was paying attention. Slowly, Emma walked toward the piano, wiping her hands nervously on her apron. Her heart beat faster with each step. She reached out and lifted the cover off the keys. Dust floated into the air. She sat down gently like she was afraid the bench might break. Then she placed her fingers on the keys. Cold. Rough. Some of them stuck a little. A few made strange sounds, but Emma didn't mind. She pressed one note, then another, and another. It wasn't perfect, not even close, but it was still music. Without planning to, her hands began to move. A slow melody poured out, soft, broken, but full of emotion, the kind of melody that feels like a memory. She closed her eyes and played from her heart, not thinking, just feeling. A cleaning staff member near the door stopped sweeping. He tilted his head and listened. The song was quiet, but it had something rare in it. Truth. Emma played like someone who had something to say without words. Every note told a story, of lost dreams, of long nights, of a girl who still remembered what it felt like to be seen. When the last note faded, Emma opened her eyes and felt tears there. Not sad tears, but something else. Like finding a part of herself again. She stood up quickly, brushing off her skirt, embarrassed. But the cleaner clapped softly. That was beautiful, he said. Emma blushed. Sorry, I shouldn't have. No, he interrupted. You should play more. She smiled, unsure what to say, and went back to the kitchen. That night she couldn't sleep. Her fingers remembered the keys. Her heart remembered the feeling. And for the first time in years, she felt more than just tired. She felt alive. The next night, she played again after closing. Just a few minutes. Just for herself. But the barista heard her this time. The night after that, the cook peeked out from the kitchen. Slowly, a few staff members began staying behind just to listen to Emma's secret performances. No one told the manager. It was their little moment of magic. Some nights she played gentle, sad tunes. Other nights she played joyful songs that made people smile. The piano, though broken in places, responded to her like it had been waiting. Waiting for someone who didn't care about how it looked. Someone who saw its soul. And maybe, in a way, the piano was like Emma. Old. Ignored. Not perfect. But still full of music. She never imagined performing again. But something had changed. Something had awakened inside her. And though the cafe still saw her as just the waitress, the staff who stayed late knew something else. They knew the truth. Emma wasn't just a girl who brought coffee. She was a pianist. And very soon, the world outside the cafe would hear it too. From that first night, Emma couldn't stop thinking about the piano. It had been like opening a door she had closed long ago. The sound of the keys stayed in her ears, even after the cafe was dark and the doors were locked. Something had woken up inside her, and something quiet but powerful. So she started a little routine. Every night, after the last customer left and the lights dimmed, Emma would walk over to the corner of the cafe and sit at the piano. It was never planned. She didn't tell anyone. It was her own secret moment. Her hands would touch the dusty keys and her heart would do the rest. The songs she played weren't perfect. Some keys were broken. Some notes sounded a little off. But somehow that didn't matter. The piano, despite its flaws, still had a soul. And Emma, even after years of silence, still had music in her hands she never played loud. Just soft like a whisper, a private song between her and the night. But the cafe wasn't always completely empty. The first time someone heard her, it was one of the dishwashers, a young boy named Luis. He had forgotten his headphones in the kitchen and came back to get them. But when he heard the music, he froze at the doorway. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just stood there staring at Emma as if he were watching something magical. He never interrupted. When she finished and turned around, a little startled, he gave her a smile and a quiet thumbs up. That was amazing, he whispered and walked away. Emma laughed softly to herself. It had felt strange and sweet having someone hear her again. She didn't plan to make it a regular thing. But the next night she played again. And Luis stayed to listen. Then another staff member joined in. Then another. It wasn't long before a small group of cafe workers started staying behind after hours. Not to mop floors or clean tables, but to sit in silence and listen to Emma play. No one asked for it. No one announced anything. It just became a habit, like something gentle and sacred. She played everything. Sad lullabies, quiet jazz, old classical pieces she hadn't touched in years. And sometimes she made up new melodies right there on the spot, letting her emotions shape each note. It was like her fingers knew what her heart wanted to say. One night, someone clapped. Emma looked up, surprised but not upset. It was the cook, grinning with red eyes. "That one reminded me of my mother," he said. "She used to play something like that when I was a kid." Emma nodded, her chest warm and tight. None of these people had known about her past. She never talked about the music academy, never mentioned the competitions, the concerts, the dreams she gave up. But slowly they were seeing her, the real her. One evening, the cafe manager almost caught them. He walked in early to grab his forgotten wallet, and as he opened the door, he heard the soft hum of a melody floating in the air. He peeked inside and saw the staff all sitting quietly like an audience. In the corner, Emma was playing, eyes closed, lost in the song. He didn't enter. He just stood there for a moment, confused and amazed. Then he turned around and left. Word started to spread. A few of the staff told friends. "You have to hear the Waitress play after hours," they'd say. "She's incredible." A couple of them even recorded small clips on their phones, not to go viral, not yet, just to keep the moment. Emma didn't know that people were starting to talk about her. She didn't even care. She wasn't doing it for attention. She was playing because it made her feel alive again, because every note helped her breathe a little deeper, because every song reminded her that even if she had lost her stage, she hadn't lost her gift. Music had always been her voice, her real voice, and now it was returning, piece by piece. The old piano, once forgotten, now had life again. The girl who had been invisible was starting to be seen, and none of them, not Emma, not the staff, not the customers who would soon find out, had any idea that something even bigger was coming. Something that would change everything, because a hidden talent can only stay hidden for so long. And when the right moment comes, the world listens. The days at the cafe continued like normal, full of noise, orders, and footsteps. Emma still wore the same black apron, still served coffee, still moved like a shadow between tables. To most people, she was still just the quiet waitress, but for a small group of staff members, she was something else. She was music. She was beauty and silence. She was their secret. And secrets have a way of slipping out. One rainy afternoon, the cafe was quieter than usual. The skies outside were gray, and people shuffled in looking for warmth and comfort. The manager, standing near the counter, looked stressed. His phone was in his hand, and he was pacing. Something was wrong. "Cancellations again," he muttered. "The live band for tonight just pulled out last minute. Great." Emma overheard but didn't say anything. She kept wiping down the tables, pretending not to listen, but her heart beat faster. The cafe had started hosting live music nights every Thursday. It brought in a good crowd. Usually they hired local musicians, jazz trios, indie singers, sometimes even violinists. But now the evening slot was empty and the manager was scrambling. Luis, the dishwasher, leaned over and whispered to him, "Why not let Emma play?" The manager frowned. "Emma?" "Yeah," Luis said, smiling. "She's incredible. She plays after hours. You should hear her." The manager laughed. "The waitress? Come on, I'm serious. Ask anyone here," Luis insisted. Another barista chimed in. "He's right. She's amazing." The manager looked confused but curious. He turned to Emma, who was now frozen near the counter, her eyes wide. "You play?" he asked. Emma hesitated. "A little," she replied quietly. He studied her. "Well, we need someone. It's either you or silence." The choice sat in the air like a question mark. Emma didn't say yes immediately. Her palms were sweating. Her stomach flipped. She hadn't performed for strangers in years. And this wasn't like the secret sessions with the staff. This would be public, real, risky. But something inside her, maybe the same quiet voice that always whispered when she saw the piano and said, "Do it." So she nodded. "All right," the manager said. "You're up at 7. By the time evening arrived, the cafe lights were dimmed, candles placed on the tables, and the piano gently wiped clean. People came in slowly, escaping the rain, ordering coffee and pastries. They sat down expecting the usual band, but instead they saw the waitress walking toward the piano. There were confused looks. Some whispered. Some giggled quietly. One customer even asked, "Is this some kind of joke?" Emma heard it all. But she didn't look up. She sat down, closed her eyes, and took a deep breath. Then she began to play. At first it was soft. The sound of the old piano wasn't perfect. A few notes cracked, a pedal, squeaked, but her fingers moved with purpose. Her hands told a story that words couldn't. Every note was a piece of her. Her past, her heartbreak, her silent strength. The room started to change. Conversations slowed. Forks paused in midair. Coffee cups stopped clinking. One by one, the customers turned their heads, their eyes drawn to the girl at the piano. The same girl who had brought them menus now brought them something else. Emotion. Her melody grew. It was deep, full of feeling, a mix of sadness and hope. Her hands danced across the keys like they had waited years for this moment. And then, silence. She played the last note and held it, letting it echo through the café like a final word. No one moved. No one breathed, then a single clap. Then another, and another. Suddenly the room erupted into applause. People stood. Some cheered. A woman near the window wiped her tears. A man at the counter whispered, "How did we not know?" Emma looked up, surprised, almost shy. She smiled softly, stood, and gave a small bow. The applause continued. That night she played 3 more songs. And every time she finished, the room fell into silence before the clapping began again. It was like magic. Quiet, powerful, unforgettable. For the first time in years, Emma felt truly seen. Not as a waitress. Not as background noise, but as the artist she had always been. And this was only the beginning. The next morning, the cafe felt different. The air was filled with whispers, excited voices, and a sense of wonder. Customers who had been there the night before came back. Not for the coffee this time, but to talk about her. The waitress who played the piano. The girl no one noticed until last night. Emma arrived early, like always, wearing her black apron and soft smile. But this time, people looked at her differently. They smiled back. Some nodded in respect. Others simply stared, as if they were seeing her for the first time. "Were you really the one playing last night?" An old man asked her gently as she cleared his plate. "Yes," she said quietly, unsure of how to act. He smiled. "You brought tears to my eyes." Emma blushed and quickly turned away. She wasn't used to this attention. For years she had lived in the shadows, doing her work without being seen. Now in just one night everything had changed. But even with the praise, even with the compliments, something inside her stayed calm. She wasn't doing this to be famous. She wasn't doing it to be special. She was doing it because it was who she truly was. The cafe manager, who had once laughed at the idea of her performing, now couldn't stop talking about her. "We need to do this again," he said, rubbing his hands with excitement. "Emma, you've got something rare. We should set up another performance. Maybe every week? What do you think?" Emma hesitated. The thought of playing in front of strangers still made her nervous. But at the same time, something inside her said yes. A quiet yes, the kind that grows louder with time. So she agreed. The next Thursday night, the cafe was packed. Word had spread beyond the regulars. People brought friends, some brought cameras. Even the local newspaper sent someone to see the piano-playing waitress. Emma stood near the counter, waiting for her moment. Her hands were shaking slightly. Her heart pounded in her chest. But when the lights dimmed and her name was called, she walked calmly to the piano. Like she had done it 1,000 times, she sat down, placed her fingers on the keys, and everything else disappeared. No more noise. No more fear. Just music. She played a song she had written years ago, one that had never been heard by anyone but her. It was gentle, emotional, full of longing. Every note felt like a piece of her heart being shared. Her fingers moved with confidence, like they remembered everything her mind had tried to forget. The cafe was silent. Even the coffee machines stopped. Even the spoons paused in their cups. People leaned forward in their chairs, eyes wide, hearts open. The girl they had once ignored now had their full attention. Her music told a story, of dreams lost, of love given up, of courage found in quiet moments. She didn't need words. The piano spoke for her, and when the final note rang out, it hung in the air like a secret waiting to be held. Then came the applause. louder than before, longer than before. It wasn't polite clapping. It was real, powerful, deep. People stood, they cheered. Some wiped tears from their cheeks. The same customers who once didn't bother to say thank you now waited in line just to tell her how much her music meant to them. You made me feel something, a young woman said. I haven't cried like that in years, said another. Hope you never stop playing, whispered a man in a suit. Emma smiled at each of them, her heart full but humble. She hadn't done it for attention. She had done it because she had to, because there was something inside her that needed to be heard. That night, a video of her performance was uploaded online by a customer. No one expected what happened next. Within hours, the video began to spread. Views turned into thousands, then hundreds of thousands. Comments flooded in from people all over the world. Strangers were touched by the girl who had been forgotten, who sat at an old piano and played like her heart was breaking and healing at the same time. People called her the soul of the café. Others called her the hidden genius. Emma didn't know how to respond to it all. It was overwhelming yet beautiful. Her quiet gift, the one she had carried in silence for years, was finally reaching the world. But more than anything, she felt peace. She wasn't just the girl in the background anymore, she was the music. And for the first time in a long time, she felt seen, truly, deeply seen, not for what she did, but for who she was. Emma never expected her life to change so suddenly. One day, she was just a quiet waitress in a corner cafe, the kind of person people barely noticed. The next day, strangers were walking in and pointing at her. Some asked for her name. Others wanted to take photos with her. It felt like stepping into someone else's life. The video of her piano performance had spread faster than anyone imagined. Someone had posted it online with the caption, "The waitress no one noticed until she played this." Within hours, thousands of people had watched it. Then it hit 1 million. Comments came from all over the world. She made me cry. And I don't even know her. This is what real talent looks like, raw and beautiful. Thank you, Emma, for reminding us what music feels like. At first, Emma didn't know what to do. She wasn't used to people noticing her. She didn't know how to handle the attention. When customers approached her and told her they'd seen the video, she would just smile politely and nod. Inside, she felt both shy and proud, like someone waking up from a long dream. The cafe, too, had changed. More people came in just to see her. They asked if she was going to play again. Some stayed for hours, hoping to catch a moment of her music. Even the cafe manager, who once didn't think twice about Emma, now treated her with a mix of respect and awe. "Emma," he said one morning, "we're fully booked for next Thursday's live music night. All because of you." She looked up, surprised. "Really?" he smiled. "People are calling just to make sure you'll be performing again." Emma didn't know what to say. She had never asked for fame or applause. For her, music was personal. Something she did because she needed to, not because she wanted to be seen. But now her quiet gift had reached the world, and the world was listening. The next Thursday arrived. The cafe was packed, more than ever before. Every chair was filled. Some people were standing near the walls, holding their coffee cups like they were holding their breath. Even people from local media had shown up, cameras ready. The lights were dimmed. The chatter was soft. Everyone waited, then Emma walked in, no apron, no tray. Just Emma, simple, calm, and focused. She sat down at the old piano, the same one that had been ignored for years. She took a deep breath and placed her fingers on the keys. The room held its breath, and then she played. The melody she chose was slow and emotional, not a flashy song, not something to impress, but something to feel, something that made your chest ache and your eyes sting without knowing why. She didn't look up. She didn't need to. She could feel the room with every note. People weren't talking. They weren't eating. They were listening, not fully, completely. It was the kind of silence that only comes when hearts are wide open. And then she finished. The final note hung in the air like a sigh. For a full 5 seconds, no one moved. Then, applause. Real, honest, powerful applause. Not polite. Not forced. It came from somewhere deep. From people who had been touched. Some stood. Some wiped their tears. Some held their hands to their chest. Emma looked up slowly, her cheeks warm with emotion. She gave a soft smile, stood and bowed. In that moment, she knew. This was no longer just about a forgotten piano or a dusty corner in a cafe. This was about something bigger. It was about being heard after years of silence. It was about being seen after being invisible for so long. She had poured her story into her music, and people had received it like a gift. After the show, customers lined up not for coffee, but for a moment with her. Some just said thank you. Others told her their own stories. A woman said her husband had passed away last year and Emma's song made her feel close to him again. A man said he hadn't felt anything in months until that night. A man said he hadn't felt anything in months until that night. Emma listened to them all, her heart full. That night, as she walked home in the cool air, Emma felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Peace. Not because she was famous now, not because people were cheering for her, but because she had finally done what her heart had always longed for. She had shared her voice, and the world had answered back with love. Emma had always believed that her story had ended the day she left the music academy. Back then, she thought the door to her dreams had shut forever. Life had demanded her strength, not her song. So she gave up her stage, gave up the spotlight, and chose silence over sorrow. But now she knew something different. Some stories don't end. They wait, and when the time is right, they return. Stronger, deeper, more beautiful. After her second live performance at the cafe, things changed quickly. The viral video continued to spread. Local news channels reached out for interviews. A popular radio show invited her to play live. Strangers emailed the cafe just to send her messages of gratitude. Some even called her a miracle, a voice the world didn't know it needed. Emma was overwhelmed, but she stayed grounded. She still came to the cafe every morning, still wore her apron, still smiled and said, "What can I get for you today?" She didn't let the attention turn her into someone else. She remained soft, quiet, and kind, just with a spark in her eyes that hadn't been there before. But behind the scenes, something bigger was unfolding. A woman named Clara, a music professor from a nearby college, too, had seen the viral video. She recognized Emma's technique right away. She had once watched her perform in a student showcase years ago. And now here she was again, playing in a dusty cafe on an old piano like the world had forgotten her. Clara didn't forget. She reached out. "Emma, your story isn't over. You still have so much more to share," she said. At first, Emma didn't know what to say. She was afraid to believe in dreams again. But Clara wasn't just offering praise, she was offering opportunity. A spot at a community concert, a guest session at the college, even help finding a grant to support Emma returning to music full-time. It didn't all happen overnight. Emma took her time. She wanted to be sure. But eventually she said yes. Not because she needed fame, not because she wanted to be known, but because her music had a purpose. The cafe manager, once doubtful, became her biggest fan. He encouraged her to reduce her hours and focus more on her performances. "You gave this place a heartbeat," he said. "Now go show the world." Emma still visited the cafe, but now she played not just at closing time. She played for full rooms, weekend evenings, special events. People traveled just to hear her in person. One evening, as she sat at the piano, a young girl came up to her with wide eyes and asked, "Do you think I could play like you someday?" Emma knelt down and smiled. "You already can. You just have to listen to your heart." It was in that moment she realized something powerful. Her story wasn't just her own anymore. Her music had become a light for others too. A reminder that quiet voices still matter, that lost dreams can return, that beauty can grow even in the darkest corners. Months later, Emma stood backstage at a small concert hall, her first real stage in years. The lights were warm. The room was full. Her hands were steady. She wasn't the scared girl from before. She wasn't the forgotten waitress anymore. She was Emma, the girl who loved music more than anything. The girl who gave up everything for her family. The girl who found her voice again, one broken piano key at a time. As she walked onto the stage and sat at the grand piano, she didn't feel nervous. She felt ready. She looked out at the crowd, smiled softly, and began to play, and just like that, the room disappeared. And all that was left was music. Her music, real, honest, alive, a new beginning.